We are live on LinkedIn. It's awesome. I'm here with Benno, and we are going to talk about a cool brand strategy thing for 2020 and talk about image content and talk about positioning and talk about some cool stuff. But before we dive in this thing, let's get Benno introduced. So, Benno, who are you? And show us what you got.
Hey, I'm Benno. I'm a brand strategist and digital marketer. And yeah, I help tech companies and also personal brands or people, to build their brand, to build out their brand strategy, to build a kick-ass technology brand, or if you're a coach, a consultant, also your personal brand. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Maurice. And super excited to have our first live stream here on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and like we met like what, a year, maybe a year and a half ago, when you were hosting podcasts and helping your audience with their branding needs and how photography would fit in that whole package that you offer. And that's how we kind of met. And now we're doing this live stream, so that's cool. So what's on your list for 2020? Like, what's going on?
I wrote down, or I have 3 topics for today. The first thing definitely is to personalize your brand. Either if you are a technology company or if you're a consultant, a coach, a solopreneur, personalization is trending big way. So yeah, people want to see a face. People want to know who's behind the company, build a relationship, like who are the people, and how can you communicate that best through your social channels. Yeah, that's a lot about storytelling, building out great content, putting a face to your company, personalize your company, going live on LinkedIn, maybe like we do right now, or give a talk at the conference. Like there are tons of things, but I think it's important, put a face to your company, don't be anonymous, and yeah, be personal, be approachable, and get yourself out there. That's my trend number 1. Maybe you have some ideas how this could fit into storytelling or the whole visual side of the brand or of the person. What are your thoughts on that? Or how do you approach that on the visual side with photography, videos, etc.?
Like, I work with a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, and companies who are either in the stages of developing their story or have their story straight. And what I do is, like, even when they have this story, I want to sort of adapt it, if you will, into what I'm doing and how my process works. So before I even touch a camera, I interview people, and that could be like the marketeers, or if it's a solo entrepreneur, I just like sit down with a person either on Skype or in person and talk about, okay, who are you? Where do you work? What are significant items? Like, what's your story? I did a session like this yesterday, and like I gave this person like pretty much like a homework assignment. Like, okay, she had some things happen in her life, and she decided that the way that people get help is not what she would have wanted way back. So I told her, like, okay, what are the significant points in life that happened to you, and what are your solutions today? So you can pretty much like bridge like your own personal expertise into a solution. And by doing this, you create some sort of like strategy, if you will, that like resonates with people, because these people can put themselves in your shoes and you put yourself in their shoes. So like you have a lot of like people really understand what is going on, and you're doing this very authentic and natural. And this is how I kind of work with the photography. And that, like, when we do the strategy, the strategy is like, okay, these are the significant points in your life. This is where these things happen. This is where you work. This is what you do. Okay, let's go on these locations and create a vibe around that story and punctuate the story that you want to tell through images. So this could be like anywhere. Like, some people are like the like, I work anywhere kind of person that always work on phones or on laptops, or are like me running around with these things. My AirPods are like always like in my proximity. They don't go anywhere. And these are like significant items. So like, if somebody sees me walking the street while I have a conversation, like, these things are with me, like you have them on. So it's like something that matters to me, because I'm always on the phone. When I'm not shooting, I'm talking to people. And my phone is a significant item. But also, like, I don't necessarily like to be on camera when I started being a photographer. And I'm putting people in a position that I didn't like to be in to begin with. So when I started working as a photographer, I worked with a photographer. I was trained by a photographer in New York City, Peter Hurley, and he put me in front of the camera. It's like, yeah, you can't really know what's going on unless you've been in that position. So he put me in that position, and I freaked out and learned, and now I know how to handle people, because I know exactly how these people feel when somebody points a camera at their face. And all those stories are the stories that I'm telling on my socials and in my blogs and in my content, and when I speak, and make it very personal and relatable without like telling sob stories and stuff. It's like, just like, be authentic and be positive.
I have one question. How would you approach the storytelling approach if you're a team? So I'm sure some of my tech customers are listening, or people who don't only have a personal brand, but there are a company team, more people. How would you approach that? Because it's like different stories, different photos, different environments. How would you get a consistent brand story throughout the company team?
Like, if we're talking tech here, like, tech companies usually develop stuff which solves problems for their clientele. Developers built these things, so these people are aware of these problems. So putting a face to the developer kind of works, and have them go like, yeah, like, I've been using a different program, or I've been struggling with this. This is how we solve it. And then we have like corporate identity kind of things, where it's like a cultural thing, and you have certain people working at a certain business because they have this like intrinsic motivation to work at a company that does well, or that like does things trying to change the world kind of thing. And like, these stories, like what motivated a person to start to work there, are very powerful. And then you can photography wise, it's going to be very boring if you're going to post pictures of keyboards all the time, because that's what people use because they're writing code, right? So, but the more practical applications of the software, or ask like maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of your clients that actually use the software in their own day-to-day business, and have them tell the stories how your software solves their problems and make their life easier. There's a lot of angles that you can work with. And like, from a technical point of view, if you're on the forefront of technical development, just share from the more like the technical nuts and bolts stuff. Like, okay, we have this thing, we built this piece of code, we like, this is our angle to solve the problem. And then you inspire other businesses. And like, I feel like storytelling and personal branding and all these words are not necessarily about the person that tells the story, but more about how my experience changes somebody else's experience and their look on the world and make their life be easier. And I think that's the key focus of storytelling. It's not so much about you, it's more about what you bring to the table.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. You also mentioned culture, or the culture in the company. I think that's a good point, because my second point, or my second trend, is definitely culture and sustainability. Let me elaborate on that a bit more. I think, like, from the last conferences I attended, the last talks, and it was a lot about culture, company culture. Remote work is a big trend, sustainability, a healthy environment, good relationships in the company. I think also this is a thing that's getting more and more important. Also with the whole millennial topics, they want to work in a company that has an impact, that has a meaning, who changed the world kind of to a better place. I mean, sometimes that's a bit of a cliche, but I think in general, it's definitely a trending topic, like company culture and having good relationships with your customers, but also in between the team members and the company.
I think there's a shift happening in the professional world where, like, 15 years ago, everybody wanted to make like the big bucks and just like sell their soul to the devil, if you will, and just do whatever it takes to like grow a big bank account. And these days, I think more people that are like graduating high schools and stuff, they are more like, okay, I want to do something meaningful and something that has purpose. And as a company, leveraging the storytelling, and as an entrepreneur leveraging the storytelling and sharing what kind of purpose and what your look on the world is important, because I think that there's a lot of companies that more or less do the same thing, like, and
a lot.
The difference is like, okay, what is the reason behind it? And I don't want to like be the advocate of like find your why and all that overused stuff, because it's like all over the place. But the point being is like,
but there's some truth behind it.
I'm sorry?
There's some truth behind it. Like,
it is, but as a company and as a business owner, there's a lot of people that market to many. And at the end of the day, they don't really appeal to anybody. And by being very specific and close to yourself and being like truthful and just doing what you do, you will find people that are either going to be totally in love with what you're doing or absolutely hate it. And those people that hate the way that you approach things are people that are going to be a problem down the line anyway, because you can't change who you are. Like, it's going to come out at some point. So I'd rather have it come out like really from the get-go, because it's like, okay, I don't want to waste anybody's time if they don't feel that they work with me in their best capacity, because they're trying to make it work. And by being upfront like all the time and being blunt and honest, weeds out the people that really don't resonate with the story that I'm telling. And that makes my life way easier when I do work with people, because these people are on board. They know exactly what they get, and there's no surprises. There's nothing going on. There's nothing happening down the line. This is me, take it or leave it. And a lot of people do not have that audacity yet to do this, because they feel like, okay, I have to be like middle of the pack because that will give me the most opportunity to work. And at some point that is going to catch up.
What about if your market is just small? Maybe you just have 200 customers in the world, 200 potential customers. Mm-hmm. Would you still go full in?
Yes, because if you have 200 customers in the world, you have a very niched product. So your prices are going to be way up. So out of those 200, maybe you need like 20 to run a substantial business, because you're not talking about a couple $100 or a couple €100 or wherever you are in the world. You're talking about multiple thousand or maybe like hundreds of thousands of dollars of deals. So you only need a couple of those. Like there's a lot of companies that like build software for, let's say, WordPress or Salesforce or like all these platforms. They build these add-ins. They weed out every other platform. But why do they focus on this thing? One, because they have the knowledge. Two, because they feel like their audience is there and they use the Salesforce or the WordPress mindset to do things. And all these people that are using like other platforms are going to be left outside of the equation anyway. So it's a matter of just like with when you have like this very niche product. Like I had a niche product 7 years ago when nobody was using LinkedIn as much as they were doing it right now. Like I was a LinkedIn profile picture photographer or a headshot guy in a country that my competition for the term headshots, which is an English term for like a shot of a head, was Call of Duty. So I was like trying to beat the people that are giving tips on how to get the best sniper shots in a video game. Like there was no market at all. And I just adapted like, okay, LinkedIn profile pictures, and I made it work so people understand what I'm offering. But the point being is like, not everybody needs a headshot that's worth 150, 200 euros. Like some people just like grab their iPhone, take a selfie, and like call it a day. And some people take their jobs more seriously and the way they present themselves and see the value in what I do. And those are the people that I appeal to.
But like, I think it's very important nowadays. Like we said, a lot of people do the same, and the differentiator is actually not what you do anymore, but how you do it, why you do it, and who you are while doing it. And I think you should brand the shit out of every single touch point you have. Yeah, and your LinkedIn profile and especially your cover photo is a touch point. And if you can differentiate with this single picture out of the millions of other people who are on LinkedIn, you should definitely do that. Yeah, be different where you can be different.
So yeah, and you're doing a lot of workshops based on like telling the brand stories and creating brands. So like what are the like 2-3 biggest takeaways that you could share that you have like in your workshop that people go like, oh my gosh, that's like so enlightening. I never thought about that.
Yeah. And a lot of people, a lot of companies, I think, have problems with the complexity of branding in general, because it's a very complex topic and it's a lot of things you have to think about. So what's special about my approach is that I have a framework. I have a modular framework. These are 7 modules that guide you through the whole branding process. And that's often already a big eye-opener for people, that you can follow a dedicated process to build your brand. And I think content is also a very underrated topic at the moment. You have a lot of potential to spread your message and what's making you different from your competition. Basically, in nowadays world, everybody can be a media powerhouse. You know, you have the reach you could afford only with investing millions and millions of dollars 20 years ago. You have that now right at your fingertips. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in leaving a landmark and your legacy in the internet. So producing high quality content on a consistent base with a clear strategy behind it, or with an underlying brand strategy, is very powerful, I think. And a lot of companies, but also like single entrepreneurs or solopreneurs, I think they leave a lot of money on the table by not doing that. And it takes work, it takes time, it takes some brain power, but I think it's very powerful. So,
and I think like people really feel like the content creation part is like overwhelming. They're going, okay, what
definitely.
should I share and what should I like post? And like the thing is, like with all these platforms like LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, website, like there's like YouTube, like there's a ton of stuff. And a lot of people just freeze because they feel like, oh my gosh, I have no idea. There's so much out there already. Like, how am I gonna be different? What I'm gonna add to the conversation? Because like everything and every stuff has already been talked about.
Yeah.
Like, what am I gonna like? What is my different angle? And the answer here is your personality. So you have a different viewpoint, and you like this stuff that I write is unique because I wrote it. It's my viewpoint. It's my tips. It's my experience. My social posts fire every day. I fire like daily, 365 days a year, like never stops. And that has nothing to do with me being like the awesome writer, because I'm writing a book and like it's coming together, but like I'm not a writer, I'm a photographer. So I create images and I shoot an image. I'm in an interesting situation. I grab my phone, I take a shot. I posted a shot 2 days ago where I was shooting on location. It was like a nice view of like an old city. And I come up with the story how my job brings me in all these different locations and these awesome views that nobody else is able to take because I'm in the position to create this awesome picture. And that's it. It doesn't say anything about the business that I'm shooting or anything. It's just like a fly on the wall kind of thing. Like, this is my life. And then the next day I talk to a person and there's this insight, like, never thought about it. And then I just like find an image that sort of like works with the story. I answer the question or I talk about this topic that somebody brought up, and it's another post. Like anybody can go into their emails right now and find at least 20 questions that people asked over the last year, and those answers can be social posts. There's a lot of stuff already in your like mailboxes or on your social media messengers or like wherever. All of this stuff is like just like write 2 paragraphs of what you think, and you have a story, and you're actually doing storytelling because you're giving your point of view.
Yeah. I think it's a lot about getting into the habit and the mindset and the momentum. The momentum of creating content is more important than the quality, at least at first, if you have problems starting. And I think the quality and your differentiation and the high value comes with the momentum you build while creating content on a daily basis.
Yeah.
We also have a great question here from Marike.
Yep. She has an awesome headshot, by the way. I took it.
Let's maybe answer her question. Okay. Her question is, how do you get around the feeling like, why should people listen to me or read my story? Because I think I have nothing very interesting about the thing I do. Do you maybe know what Marike does?
Yeah,
Maurice?
she works in IT. She's I've known her from past corporate jobs. So she was a team leader in a marketing / IT team, around content, around like uh, system management kind of thing. And
Do you think Marike is a boring person, or what she
no,
does is boring, and she doesn't have to tell a story about that?
no, I think like she did a lot of freelance work. I'm not sure what the current status is, but like as a freelancer, you get hired for your expertise. Like a company has a problem, they don't have anybody on staff that can like offer the solution, so they'll find an outside person that comes in, sets everybody straight, gets the stuff done, and then you're off your way again. And the way that these people find you is more or less already either through referrals or through the knowledge that you have or the resume and all that stuff. And by punctuating like your knowledge, your resume, your past jobs, just talking about these things is like helpful already, because like these people have a problem, and even though the solution is very obvious to you, doesn't mean that the solution is obvious to everybody else,
Yes,
no matter what your niche is. Like I can like grab any camera and I know exactly what settings to put in and get a good shot, because that's my work, right? So that's my profession. I'm a professional photographer. I grab a camera, I take a picture, and it's awesome. And somebody else is like the top of the line coder, or is very awesome in restructuring teams, or um, mediation with people, or like whatever. And like nobody knows everything, and you knowing a lot about a very specific topic is already like a gold mine in things that you can share.
yes.
It's like like I can hand my camera to anybody on the street and they have no idea what to do with it. And then I can talk about it for like hours on end, and it's interesting to them. And to me, it's like, oh my gosh, it's so boring. It's like, yeah, it's this button, it's that button, this is an aperture, this is shutter speed, this is that, this is the other thing. I have lenses, I have light. It's like the obvious stuff. But there's a lot of people that feel that that's very interesting. And that is with a lot of line of works.
I think that's a very typical blind spot, like that we we are stuck in our business and our projects and our head and our life, and we don't have the external perspective. This is why you maybe also hire a coach or a consultant to get an outside perspective and to pull stuff out of you and create a strategy out of that information. And we don't see what we know. We don't see our problems. We don't see the impact we might have, even with small changes we make or small value we add to our customer's life. And I think that's also the process of brand building and storytelling, and getting the momentum of creating the content, like writing that down. And I would start even with creating one case study or so. Like what did you do in your last project? Just write it down, create some images, and you will have a lot of insights about your projects. Your customers will have a lot of insights. You can share that, take a photo, and that builds momentum.
Yeah. And usually the most obvious things to you are the most powerful to others.
Yeah.
They have this like aha moment, like eureka. I never thought about this. Like that's usually the stuff that's the most obvious. So that, I think that sums it up. So we are like, I am definitely doing more Facebook live, LinkedIn lives. I'm gonna, like Benno and I were talking to do more of these in the future. Maybe it's a good idea to like figure out to get a third person on here and talk
Yes.
about what they do with their business right now, and like do a little 10-minute brainstorm on how that they can like work the storytelling, work the content, work the brand positioning themselves, do a little of that, just like very free format. It's going to be very honest, but it's going to be live, so you have to be ready for it, to hear it, and just to tell your story. And we'll give you a couple of angles that you can indulge yourself in and create more and like better yourself, if you will. So if you want to be part of that, we'll probably do this sometime in the upcoming weeks. Follow me if you're not following me, and Benno on the LinkedIn. Just connect with us and send us a private message or a direct message or a message, like whatever LinkedIn calls it these days. And we will get in touch, and we will select one person that will be on screen and be able to pick our brains, even though I hate that term, for 10 minutes.
Be ready to be ripped apart. We will rip your brand apart.
I feel like there's a lot of business owners that don't have that opportunity to get ripped apart and build up again. A lot of people don't get offer them the honesty, and honestly, that's the way that you become a better person.
Yeah.
Oh, and I see a comment about nasty problems and why Marika got hired. So she has to be kind on the content, but you can always just anonymize it and make it a fictional story. Yeah, the key of the problem is always there. It's a matter of like how abstract you can tell that story. So we've been going at it for like 34 minutes, which is awesome. Thank you, Benno, for being a part of this thing.
Thank you, Maurice, for having me. And for being
I hope you enjoyed it. I hope everybody else enjoyed it. Watching this thing live, it's going to be available on LinkedIn to watch recordings. And like, since we are the content people here, there's probably going to be a recording hovering over the internet at some point in the next upcoming days that we'll share through our personal LinkedIn profiles for you to enjoy. So,
and if you still have some questions, I want one more thing. Like if you guys have questions about getting the best headshot for LinkedIn, or about the best brand strategy for your personal or technology brand for the next year, like now's the time to plan. You have 6 more weeks, I think, until 2020 starts. So reach out to Maurice or me. And yeah, we are happy to answer your questions, of course.
Cool. And on that little wisdom nugget, we're gonna like end the LinkedIn live. We're gonna let everybody go about their day. There's so much things to do. So thank you again for watching, and we will see you soon. Like, pay attention to either one of our profiles. We will be announcing these things probably a day in advance, so you know when we are going live. And maybe there's going to be some like impromptus, but the longer ones will be definitely planned and scheduled, and there's going to be an event. So be on the lookout, and we will see you on the next one. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Maurice.
You got it.